calls the roll? I don't remember.
Devin will call roll.
Aaron Ranke. Barry Krall.
Present.
Bruce Hendricks. Dan Palmer.
Here.
John Getz.
Okay.
You have a quorum.
Barely. We're starting to get nervous.
A little bit.
First item up is approval of the January 6th minutes. We might need to defer that.
I'll make a motion to approve. And I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. On to public comment. Anybody here wish to address the Bike and Run Committee? No comment. Bicycle and pedestrian plan update.
So if you want to come up here, it's a little bit easier. So you can see.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. I'm Alex Hansen with Sam Schwartz Consulting. So we've been supporting the Village CMAP and working with the team to develop the plan. So it's good to see some of you again. I'm just going to give an update about where we are in the timeline here, getting close to the finish line with the bike and pedestrian plan. Talk a bit about what the final plan document will look like, what the structure of it is, and what's included in it. Go over some of the key recommendations and talk a bit about our next and final steps here over the next couple months, or month or so, I should say. So we've been working on the plan for a little over a year or so now. We started off last spring with our first phase of getting to know the communities, and that involved a lot of community engagement, so hearing directly from residents about challenges and opportunities they experience biking and walking, both in both villages. And then also a lot of data collection and analysis in that upfront phase to verify what we heard from the community and look at other key challenges. Then in the fall and winter, we really took all of that information and started to think about what types of improvements could be made and what the vision for the future might look like in terms of a future bike network and key pedestrian improvements. And in the fall, or excuse me, in the spring here, we've been kind of taking all of that information, all the conversations we've had with residents, with stakeholders, all of the analysis we've done and kind of iterations of the recommendations, working with staff and the community as well, to put those together into the plan document that we're really excited about and hope will equip you all well to go and hit the ground running on making a lot of these improvements, finding funding for them, and being able to bring the plan to fruition. So the final document kind of has 6 key sections. So there's an upfront overview or executive summary that talks a bit about both of the villages and their context, goes into some of their demographics and that kind of information. Then highlights key opportunities and challenges that we heard and learned about from the community and have really focused on finding ways to address throughout the plan. And then we have kind of cover the recommendations at a glance up front before we delve into them in detail later on. Then we go about talking about the plan process, so the 3 phases I just mentioned and the timeline, as well as giving a kind of detailed overview of the community engagement, so all of the different activities we've done throughout and what we've learned through them and how that's really been foundational towards the recommendations we've developed. Then the key recommendations section goes over biking, walking, intersections and crossings, and includes a street design kind of toolbox of a wide variety of tools to make walking and biking safer and more comfortable at intersections, at crossings, ways to enhance both modes. Then we have a section that looks at key projects. So we worked with village staff to identify a subset of really important projects that often have kind of overlap between the biking improvements we're talking about as well as pedestrian improvements, so where multiple needs can be addressed through one project. And for those, we have kind of project information sheets that we hope are a good starting point for staff to be able to apply for grants and have some of that key information detailed there. Then there's a section on kind of policy and programs, so a lot of things to go along with and complement a lot of the more infrastructure-focused recommendations, but about how to support and encourage more walking and biking through education and programming and other methods. And then lastly, the funding and implementation piece at the end looks at cost estimates, some legislative updates from the state that are important and provide some additional opportunities, hopefully, to implement these recommendations, and then some key grant sources to track and pursue. So this might be a little tricky to see all the details here on the screen, but this is the kind of future bike network. So looking at in the, what are kind of the dark blue lines are proposed new routes. Then we have a few in yellow where there are proposed kind of enhancements to existing routes. And then we also are showing the existing bike network here. So right now there are about 65 miles of bike facilities within the village. We identified 4 miles where there could be some additional enhancements to those. That might be expanding a sidewalk to become a shared use path, so going from 6 feet to 10 feet, say, or implementing some additional traffic calming on a signed bike route potentially to make that more comfortable and safe for people. So we have 4 miles of those kind of enhancements, and then 31 miles of new bikeways, which are the dark blue lines. And these are covering a lot of major streets, looking at adding shared use paths to really provide a connected network across the village that connects to key destinations. But then also some local routes that kind of provide more small-scale connectivity within a neighborhood or also reaching key destinations. And with the future bike network, the vast majority of the village, about 85% of the area, would be within a quarter mile of the network, so really easily accessible to it. Then we've, both based on kind of national best practices as well as some specific community engagement activities we had, been thinking about developing these criteria or guidance on how to determine what kind of improvements or bike facility might be needed on a given street, depending on its context, especially looking at speed limits and traffic volumes as really key determinants of what type of facility you need to make it feel safe and comfortable and encourage a wide variety of people to come and use it. So when speeds are low and traffic volumes are low, most people are comfortable sharing the road with a vehicle. So we might have pavement markings, we might have signage, we might have some traffic calming to kind of go along with that, but not a necessarily separate dedicated facility. As speeds increase a little bit or traffic volumes increase, so above 25 miles an hour and more than 3,000 vehicles per day, we might go to a striped bike lane, so just with paint, but then becoming a little more, or requiring a little more separation and protection to make people feel safe and comfortable. So when speeds are 30 or 35 miles an hour, you might have a separated bike lane. And then on major streets where speeds are high, we're recommending shared use paths in order to make those approachable and comfortable routes. And so this is just taking that criteria and then applying it to the future bike network. So the kind of on-street shared facilities that might be a assigned route or more of a neighborhood biking route, there's 4 miles of those. really minimal, just regular striped bike lanes. There's only about a mile just because of context and where we're looking at those. Fairly limited, about 3 miles of separated bike lanes, but then really the vast majority of the network is either shared use paths or off-street trails, which we think is, really what we've heard from residents where they're the most comfortable biking, and so really responds to that feedback and input. So, 35 miles potentially of new bikeways is a lot. So we thought it was very important to go about prioritizing that and where we think the most impact would come and where it makes sense to start with those improvements. So we looked at 6 different criteria to prioritize the future bike network and the proposed routes. So we considered equity, so we looked at data from CMAP around where areas with high equity needs are. Destinations, so early on in the process with the community, we mapped key community destinations, so we're looking at how many of those destinations a route connects. Thinking about connectivity in terms of whether the new proposed route connects to existing routes and kind of helps fill a gap within the network. Safety, so we looked at crash data and safety incidents in the past that would make a route more of a priority to be able to provide solutions to those, as well as community input. So we've had a number of kind of mapping activities throughout the process, so how much the community has told us that route's an important route for them. And then lastly, looking at barriers, and whether the route might help address, a key barrier, whether that's a major street or a railroad or those are really the main 2 criteria there. So when we went through this prioritization exercise, this is kind of how things came out. So everything in red are what we're calling tier 1 bike routes, so the highest priority. So long list on the right here. Some of them are fairly short segments though, but we have out to the west, segment of West Bartlett and Stearns Road, Munger Road around the business park, Naperville and Spalding and the potential Grasslands Trail. Then 59 obviously is a bit of a barrier currently, but also has a lot of access to destinations, and we've heard a lot about the need for people to be able to bike and walk there safely. Then continuing or completing Schick Road as a connection, looking at Fairfax as a kind of neighborhood bike route. We have Prospect, and then a number of improvements kind of in downtown to create a connected network through the downtown and around that area. So turning to walking a little bit, we've identified in both villages what we call pedestrian focus areas, which are really areas that either have high levels of pedestrian activity today or we think have the potential for more walking in the future, kind of based off their land use and future development. And these are areas where we think applying traffic calming techniques, certain policy actions, or additional improvements can really be targeted to provide the most kind of bang for your buck and improving walking within the village. We've also looked at sidewalk gaps, so where there are missing links within the sidewalk network, and again, gone through and prioritized those, really based off what we heard from the community about how they would go about addressing these gaps. So the highest priority are those areas or missing links that are close to schools and transit. Then the second tier here is gaps around things like libraries, community centers, parks, and forest preserves, or gaps along major streets, or any other gaps within those pedestrian focus areas. And then all the other gaps are in a third bucket there. So within Bartlett, the sidewalk gaps break down. There's about 7 miles in that highest grouping, so close to transit or schools. The second tier is a pretty large bucket, so there's 26 miles of sidewalk gaps within that met that criteria. And then the third tier, there's an additional 19 miles of longer-term sidewalk gaps. We've also, through community engagement, heard a lot about the importance of addressing intersections and crossings as often really key points that take what might otherwise be a comfortable route and make it more stressful or a real pinch point for people walking or biking. And so have mapped out high priority locations based on crash analysis, looking at key barriers, and then community input being a real key factor here. And this map is just breaking these down a little bit in terms of what kinds of treatments might be needed to make them safer and more comfortable. So signalized intersections where there's a traffic signal, there's 7 of those within Bartlett. Then unsignalized locations where there might be a stop sign or might be no traffic control currently, so like a mid-block location. There's 11 of those that we've identified. And then we also looked at potential need for grade-separated crossings and identified one on Illinois 59 with a potential kind of extension of the trail using the ComEd right-of-way west. So this is just a sample of what the street design toolbox within the plan looks like. So we have information on kind of the rough cost of all of these different elements, as well as what the timeline for implementing them looks like, how involved the design or engineering might be, as well as what the right kind of context or location for them is, whether they're appropriate on major streets or smaller local streets or both. And then just information on exactly what they are and how to apply them. And this is broken down to looking at intersections, looking specifically at bikes at intersections, tools that can be applied for those situations, trail crossings, and then traffic calming items. And then this is what one of those kind of informational sheets for key projects look like. So we have identified 6 key projects within Bartlett. So Munger Road between Stearns and Sayre, West Bartlett Road from Bennington to Westridge, then Naperville Road from West Bartlett to Timberline Drive, Spalding Road, which we're showing here, from Naperville to Lambert, and then Stearns from Munger out to the state park, and then a segment on 59 towards the south between Schick and Gulfstream. And so within these sheets, we have information just on some of the details of the projects, how long it is, what type of bike improvement there would be, how many sidewalk gaps there are, and how many of those key intersections there are, as well as how many people and jobs are close to the project, and if there's any significant crash history. And then some just narrative describing the project and what its potential benefits would be. So a lot of this information can be hopefully a starting point for grants or other applications going forward. So the list of next steps is dwindling as we get further along here. So we're working to kind of finalize the entire plan document, which we're anticipating will be available for public comment in early July. So in just a week or two here up on the website. And then we'll be going through public hearings and meeting with the village board for formal adoption in July is the plan. So happy to answer any questions, or if folks have thoughts, or,
I do have a question about the sign toolbox.
yeah.
The village purchased a sign machine last year, or contracted for one. Have we received it, and is that in operation?
So yes, we have received it, and yes, it is in operation.
Awesome. And Route 59 and West Bartlett Road is going under this huge renovation shortly. Will the bike paths, which has always been part of the plan, be part of that, or is that just a complete different project?
So there are improvements to the crossing, for the existing crossing at 59 and West Bartlett. And then, as I believe you know, Grassland Subdivision is going forward with their plans. They will be, the developer or the owner will be submitting engineering plans to do the crossing underneath Route 59 at the railroad tracks. So once we get the engineering plans for that, we're going to start looking at getting permits to start the construction of that.
Great.
So,
Thank you.
During the public comment portion, or when I guess it would be a draft plan at that point.
Yep.
Right? Will there be an opportunity to make amendments?
Yeah, absolutely. I think.
Because it looks like a pretty short window between when the draft is available for us to review, or public to review, and then adoption.
Yeah, we definitely are still open to refinements and comments, and are ready to make adjustments quickly to meet the schedule.
Okay.
But yes, definitely still welcoming feedback.
Is
and
this
thoughts.
slide deck available, or is that, I guess,
I can definitely make it.
just to get kind of a
available.
pre-look at, because I couldn't see all the,
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make
there.
sure Christy has it and can share it with you all.
okay. This is great, we're excited. The timeline, I'd like to kind of see what your thoughts were on the cost and timeline. You said you went into that, but that's,
Yes.
I mean,
we-
that's probably determined on a number of other factors, but,
Yeah, we've looked at, we have planning level cost estimates for things, for all of the key recommendations. I think timing is always very dependent on a number of potential factors, but we hope that the prioritization really helps give kind of a focused starting point that
Okay.
helps get the process rolling.
another question, does the plan also specify, like, for example, Route 59, path along there, does it specify whether it would be, right on the pavement, or would it be, set into the pavement? Because that's kind of a critical factor, right?
Yes, so not for every single link within the plan. I think we talk about shared use paths and best practices for design, or guidance for those. And ideally, trying to create a buffer between the
Yeah.
street and the path is
Okay.
always preferable. But there are sometimes constraints that make that an absolute a challenge.
Okay, I would hope that the recommendation would always be to separate it, and only in circumstances where there's not room
Yep,
to do that, because there's a section on 59 that's almost unusable
yeah,
in its current
I know what you're
limitation.
talking about.
Okay, great, thank you, this was awesome.
Very nice.
Great. Well, yeah, we're excited to be getting towards the end here, and I really appreciate everyone's partnership, and all the engagement we've gotten throughout has been excellent.
Hey, was there any other public comment? Because I know the last time that we spoke was during that WebEx. Was there any other public meetings that we just weren't aware of, or?
We had a public meeting in May, May 24th, I believe, that was also virtual, but we
Yeah,
had
okay.
good attendance at, and then we've been kind of doing a lot through the website throughout the process as well.
Were you guys notified of that? Did you guys know about that?
yeah, we didn't get,
We didn't, yeah, that would have been nice to kind of sit through again, but,
Yeah. Well, we definitely are happy to go through the plan in detail with you all, or.
I guess not just that, but I
time
mean,
afterwards.
was it well represented, or was it well attended? I mean, and how did you communicate it that there was a meeting even?
Yeah, we had about 25 people attend, and had people from both Bartlett and Streamwood
Yeah,
there.
okay.
Yeah.
And that was virtual?
Yeah.
Was that recorded?
Yes, it is. It's on the project website, a lot of it was in breakout rooms, so that part isn't recorded, but the presentation piece is.
I guess, is there like a mailing list or something that we can get on, or? I guess
Yeah, so
how else
through
would we have known about that?
through the project website, we sent out notifications to everyone who's registered for it, and then developed other materials to help spread the word, but
Okay.
apologize that you all didn't get those.
Right, I'm good.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Oh, I do want to add one thing. On many of those maps, there was one path that goes through the ComEd right-of-way, and it was highlighted as needs further study. The reason for that is there's a lot of factors that it looks like a great line on a map, but there's a lot of factors and a lot of obstacles for that occurring. So that doesn't mean that's where that would go.
Okay.
It's just saying there's an idea to have some sort of connection.
I get
It's
it.
not on a roadway.
Which comment right away?
So right now, it ends at South Bartlett Road, so it would be going west towards like the Westridge Lakewood Mill subdivision. So it would kind of cut through the middle of Route 59. It's
Yeah.
kind of parallel in the midpoint between 59 between West Bartlett Road and Stearns
Oh,
Road.
yeah, there's like a wetland there too, right?
There's wetlands, there's railroad crossing, there's Route 59,
Yeah, okay.
there's environmental, issues
Yeah.
as well, so.
Okay.
But it won't be 20 years.
What?
It won't be 20 years.
Well, there's no funding, there's no time frame for that. It's just saying that if that's something that wants to be pursued, there's a lot of agencies that would need to be involved in it. There's a lot of study. That is probably the longest term.
Yeah, so that was not
Connection.
on the priority list, right? Because I think identifying the gaps to get to Westridge and get along Naperville, those are probably the highest priority.
Right.
It's going to affect the most people. That bridge or whatever it would be over 59 would be great, but last of the line.
Right. I think there's other
Longer term.
priorities we should
Okay.
focus on.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Old and new business. DuPage Forest Preserve? Hello.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jessica Ortega, Manager of Strategic Plans and Initiatives at the Forest Preserve District. And I'm here to give you a little update on our project, the North Central DuPage Regional Trail that's connecting the Woodland Hills neighborhood along Munger Road down to the Prairie Path. So you've probably seen it's under construction. So we are working through one issue, getting a material approved through IDOT, but we expect that'll get resolved soon, and construction will continue and be complete in, probably early September timeframe of this year. I know there's also been interest in the past from this group about some trail improvements we're working on at Pratt's Wayne Woods. We did get a grant for that, and we're working through kind of an extended, long process of getting paperwork back and forth through IDOT, and then getting the federal money released through, not IDOT, IDNR. So we've got all our stuff into them and waiting for a response back from them to proceed. We will be working on plans yet this fall, and so hopefully if all the stars align and the funding gets released, we'd start working on that in the spring. So that's it for my update. Are there any questions I can answer for the group?
That Pratt Wayne Wood one, that's the loop around that back lake, right?
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, that's neat, because that's a swamp back there. And we'll reiterate that we're excited about this North Central DuPage Regional Trail. I watch the progress almost every day, and I'm excited for it to get done.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does not look like anyone's here from the Park District. Grant updates.
Tyler Isham has included his updates in the memo. If you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Couldn't hear that.
Tyler Isham has included his grant updates in the memos here. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Okay. Bike projects update?
Say that again?
What,
Oh, the,
Bike path project update?
he has also included those updates in the memo here.
Did you want to read anything into the record in case somebody,
We typically don't have to because it's not, it was part of the agenda packet. It's part of the packet, so it doesn't have to be read into the record.
Council of Government update, same thing?
Devin, did you want?
Yeah, I've provided a memo there going over some of the topics that were covered at the meetings in the last, I guess, about 6 months. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Yeah.
I don't have any questions related to any of those. I did try several times to submit comments on Route 20 and Shales Parkway renovation. I'm not quite sure if it went through or not, given their computer system seemed to be acting up. I see that there's another meeting scheduled for next Wednesday. I'm not going to be able to attend that one, so I'd be interested in seeing that kind of stuff just from my bike pedestrian contact, because there's no suitable way. You can't safely traverse that area. You got to go up to Irving Park, or you got to go south through South Elgin if you want to get around that intersection. And I understand it was built a long time ago, but if we have a village rep there, I'd like to see some commentary to that effect.
I'm pretty sure someone is attending that, so a notification went out to all the department heads regarding that.
Okay.
Regarding the bike path projects update, the South Bartlett Trail, that's the one that's just going north of the library, right?
To the horse farm?
Yeah, to the horse farm, okay. So the proposed 8-foot wide path, so is that going to be built then, or what's the, so I guess what's the plan there? Is it going to break ground, or is it?
So that project is very preliminary right now.
Gotcha.
We just walked through the path, Public Works and the Park District. We walked through the path last week with Kelly O'Brien and Rita, just to make sure that everyone was on the same page for the tree removal that was going to be needed. But you know, as far as any engineering goes, none of that has begun yet.
Okay. So then of the allocated $40,000 per year, if that's not done this year, where's that $40,000 going to be spent this year, right? We don't want to lose that, right?
Well, the $40,000 we use mainly for the maintenance.
Gotcha.
For existing paths. So the capital improvement project.
I see.
For South Bartlett Trail, that'd be a different line item in the budget.
Gotcha, okay.
Any other comments for the good of the order? Nothing to add? Okay, I'll motion for adjournment.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Devin, can you turn off the recording?